In days long forgotten, when magic was abroad and there were tales told after every meal, an old oak grove stood on the top of the hill. Here, above the Clyde, was a sacred place, a place where the gods of the land and sea met under the one sun. It came to pass in those days that a traveller arrived in the village that lay beneath the hill. Blaine was his name, and he had travelled a long distance from the city of St. Peter, carrying with him a casket of sacred soil. As night fell, he knocked on the door of the one home in the village where a candle still burned in the window, and was greeted by an elderly woman. "I've travelled many miles, and tomorrow I seek passage north across the water, where I will end my journey, but for tonight I seek only a place to lay my head and a simple meal of fish." At this, the woman appeared distressed. As Blaine attempted to console her, she recounted the tragic events that had blighted the village in recent days. The start of the fishing season had seen great catches, enough to beat the villagers 3 times over, but as the days and weeks passed, the boats returned with more fishermen than fish. This caused great strife for the village, but it was to be nothing compared to the hardships which were to come. On the 4th Monday before the turning of the seasons, 10 men went out and 7 returned. On the 3rd Monday, 7 men went out and 5 returned. On the 2nd Monday, 5 men went out and 3 returned, and now, on the last Friday before the bright half of the year, the 3 men who went fishing on Monday were yet to return. Blaine asked the elderly woman why only she kept a candle burning, and to this she answered, "The candle burns for the last fisherman of the village, my husband and my 2 sons. At this, the candle flickered and blew itself out, plunging the room into darkness. A moment later the door opened, and by the waning light of the moon, a hunched figure stumbled inside. It was the youngest son, returned from the river without his father or brother. As he warmed himself by the fire, he recounted what had happened to them. "When we set out, the wind was at our backs, and we sailed out further than we had before, hoping the waters would be brimming with fish. We dropped our nets and hoped for better fortunes. But as the day drew on and the sun dimmed, our nets were still empty. So we decided to head back home, but as we tried to haul our nets back, the ropes were dragged from our hands. The water seethed and writhed, and as our boat overturned, I caught sight of a mammoth fin before it again flashed beneath the waves. Breezing and spluttering, I looked around for my father and brother, but they too had vanished. The water gave way once again, and our boat was dashed to splinters as a mighty serpent crashed towards the skies. The sight of this hideous creature bearing down on me was the last thing I saw before a terrible dark sleep came upon me. I awoke shivering on the shore. It seemed certain to Blaine that this terrible creature was the source of the village's most recent woes, and he realised that he had little hope of crossing the river before the turning of the seasons. Leaving the family with his grief, he set out to consult the village elders for a solution. In a clearing by the grove of oaks, the elders had assembled around a fire. Blaine addressed them. "I have travelled from the seat of the Holy See, carrying with me a box of consecrated earth. I seek passage over the waters that I might bless my own church with this hallowed ground before spring turns to summer. Is there no other way to cross?" The elder explained that the creature destroyed every craft which had tried to pass, and they had no solutions to the problems of their own village, let alone the concerns of a passing traveller. Disheartened, fearing that his own quest would never be completed, Blaine wandered past the oak grove and into the dark of the woods beyond. As he journeyed on through the valley, he found himself in the forest of Ravenscraig, where the trees became thick with flickering shadows. Gradually, Blaine became convinced he was being watched. Ahead, peering through the darkness, he could make out the unmistakable eyes of a wolf. As he made to turn and run, the shadowy creature stepped forwards into a shaft of moonlight. It was not a wolf, but a man. "Do not be afraid, Blaine. My name is Lorne, and these are my woods. I understand you wish to cross the Clyde. These are dangerous waters. Clutha, the great lady of the river, is angry." "What do you know of the great serpent and the deaths of the fishermen?" asked Blaine. "More than the wise village elders do, I can assure you. The villagers of these western lands are good people, but they know little of the old gods. They don't understand these spirits of the earth and the water are selfish and sometimes cruel. They farm the river to feed their families, but they take too much. They offer nothing in return to Clutha, who then thinks it fair to take their husbands and sons in return. Even I cannot say when she'll decide she has enough, and so something must be done to restore the balance." Blaine listened to Lorne, but still could not see what part he had to play. "This is not my village. These are not my people. I feel for their loss, but I am one man, and these people face a monster with the strength of 100. My concerns lie elsewhere, and with another god." Lorne shook his head and spoke again. "You're mistaken. You carry close to you the kind of belief which can enable one man to topple mountains, and only this can redress the balance." Lorne explained that the trees which grew on the great hill were both sacred and magical, and that if Blaine was determined to cross the waters of the Clyde with his precious cargo, then a boat made from one of these same oaks would ensure safe passage. You will cross the river, you will end the suffering of the village, and you will return home safely. I can tell you no more, but these are simply things that I know. And Lorne stepped back into the darkness. Left with more questions than answers, Blaine nonetheless decided to carry out Lorne's wishes. He chopped down the mightiest oak atop the hill and fashioned it into a boat. As night fell on the last day before the turn of the seasons, he set sail with his sanctified soil, with a prayer in his heart. However, the simple boat was no more than halfway across the river when there was a clamour and churning of the water, and the serpent pulled its vast body into the air over Blaine's modest vessel. As he stood, frozen in fear, the great beast suddenly spoke. "I am Clutha, goddess of this river, and you are a land dweller who will never learn there's a price to be paid for nets filled with fish and safe crossings. Too often now, the land takes what it pleases and never gives in return. Will you too cross without paying, and take without giving?" Blaine knew his time had come, and thinking back to Lorne's words, he knew exactly what to do. "I carry with me the very earth beneath our feet, earth which is used to honour my god. It's more precious to me than life, and I would die to protect it. So I will show you what a land dweller can do to offer a sacrifice." So saying, Blaine opened the casket of soil and drew out a handful, scattering it into the water before the vast sea serpent. "This old god is honoured by this, the sacred land of your new god. The toll is paid, the land has taken and has repaid with its own. The people of this river may come and go as they please." And so the trials were over, the villagers mourned for their dead and carried on living. And Blaine returned home to the Isle of Bute and built his church atop a green hill surrounded by trees. In later years, a church was built in Blaine's name in the town, which was once the village. And some say, as some will, that Blaine himself was buried beneath it. But this is a story for another time.